So you have spent years, and I mean literally years, studying English grammar.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows that struggle.
Right. You know all the rules, you have memorized the vocabulary, you understand the sentence structures, but the second you try to speak in a real-world situation, you just completely freeze.
Like a deer in headlights.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we are looking at a technique from our source material called the shadowing method. 330 daily life English sentences. And this source basically suggests throwing away your grammar textbook entirely and, well, starting to talk to your kitchen walls instead.
Which sounds a little crazy at first.
It really does. But the mission of this deep dive is to explore this fascinating shortcut to fluency. It is called shadowing, and it bypasses traditional study to focus purely on the music, the rhythm, and the actual physical reality of speaking English.
Yeah, we are basically stripping away the illusion that language is just this, data transfer. Today is really about the psychology of communication. We are going to look into why certain structural mistakes trigger immediate social friction and why your brain processes casual versus formal tones so differently.
And we'll get into why practicing your daily routine out loud to an empty room might actually be the neurological key to unlocking your confidence.
It is a total game changer.
So let's just get right into the mechanics of the shadowing method itself. The concept is deceptively simple, right?
Very simple. You listen to a sentence and you repeat it out loud immediately.
Like immediately.
Yes, not listening, pausing, translating in your head, and then speaking. It is a continuous overlapping echo.
Right, so you are mimicking the sound, the speed, the rise and fall of the pitch. But I want to look at the engine under the hood here.
Let's do it.
Why does immediate vocalized repetition actually crack the fluency code when, years of silent reading just totally fail?
Well, it really comes down to shifting the cognitive load. I mean, traditional language learning relies so heavily on the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the analytical rule-checking part of your brain,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So you think of a concept, you pull up the vocabulary, you cross-reference it with your grammar rules, and then you try to force your mouth to execute the resulting sentence.
That sounds exhausting.
It is, and that massive cognitive bottleneck is exactly what causes the freeze that you mentioned earlier. Shadowing fundamentally bypasses that analytical bottleneck
Oh, so?
by training the brain and the motor system simultaneously. You are experiencing the grammar in its natural habitat, a fully functioning sentence, while your mouth physically learns to form the sounds.
So you are basically building muscle memory.
Precisely. I mean, speaking a language is a profound feat of physical coordination.
I never really thought about it like that.
Your jaw, your tongue, your vocal cords, your diaphragm, they all need to move in a highly specific sequences. If you only read silently, you are training your visual and analytical pathways, sure, but your motor cortex remains completely dormant.
Wow.
Shadowing forces the physical apparatus to practice the movements until they become automatic.
Okay, so it's sort of like trying to learn how to swim by reading a textbook on fluid dynamics.
That is a great analogy.
You might ace the written test, but if you jump in the pool having never actually moved your arms and legs, you are going to sink.
You will absolutely sink. That is the exact disconnect we see. Shadowing puts you in the water immediately.
Okay, but I do have a practical hurdle with this.
Let's hear it.
Walking around your house, echoing an audio track while making coffee or folding your laundry, it feels objectively absurd.
Oh, completely.
If my neighbors look through the window and see me aggressively talking to a carton of milk, they are going to have questions.
Oh, they will definitely think you were a little strange.
Ah,
But according to the source material, that awkwardness is an inherent part of the initial phase.
really?
Yeah, that out loud physical exertion is totally non-negotiable. Auditory processing alone will not map the neural pathways required for speech.
So just listening to podcasts on the train isn't enough?
Nope. If you are just listening to the audio on your commute without moving your mouth, you are passively absorbing information. And that creates this illusion of competence.
Ah, because you recognize the words so you think you know them.
Exactly. But recognition and generation are two entirely different neurological processes. The mouth physically requires the repetition to build the habit.
Okay, so assuming we just embrace the awkwardness and start talking to the milk carton, we need to look at what exactly we are physically training our mouths to do.
Right. And this brings us to the actual rhythm of daily life.
Which the source material gets into, starting with the very first interactions of the morning.
Yes, the morning routines.
There is a really heavy focus on the pacing of everyday phrases here. Take something as simple as, I am running a little late.
A classic morning phrase.
Right. And shadowing teaches us that the goal isn't to enunciate every single syllable perfectly. It's supposed to be fast, relaxed, and kind of blended together.
That is because English is what linguists call a stress-timed language. Native speakers do not assign equal time to every word.
They squish things together.
Exactly. They compress the less important grammar words and stretch out the core meaning words. So running and late carry the meaning, right? So
Right.
everything else in that sentence just gets squished. When you shadow that phrase, you aren't memorizing words, you are internalizing the compression.
You learn to speak in cohesive chunks of meaning rather than like robotic individual words,
Add it on.
which is what creates that elusive feeling of flow.
Yes, flow is all about that compression.
But then once you step out of your house with that internal rhythm established, you immediately run into the complexities of social nuance.
Oh, social minefield.
Seriously, the source outlines a
It does. Social register, which is the level of formality we use, is the very first metric people use to evaluate you in a conversation.
first impressions, right?
Yeah. When a hiring manager hears a hyper-casual greeting in an interview, their brain basically throws an error code because the linguistic register doesn't match the environmental context.
It violates what they expect to hear.
Exactly. And conversely, using highly formal, rigid English with a close friend, say you walk up to your buddy and say, "Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see you."
They would think I was mad at them.
Right. Because it creates artificial distance, it signals coldness where there should be warmth.
Man, that makes the stakes of just saying hello surprisingly high.
It really does.
And there is another hidden trap in those early interactions that fascinates me. The source puts a huge emphasis on this.
What's that?
The absolute dread of silence in English-speaking cultures.
Ah, yes, the awkward silence.
Like in the interactive dialogues they show, if someone asks how you are and you answer and then you just let the conversation stop, the silence that follows isn't just neutral.
No, it is actively negative.
Why is silence such a big deal?
Well, cultural translation is often much harder than linguistic translation. I mean, in many cultures, a pause before answering or allowing a moment of quiet after a statement is a sign of respect.
It shows you are thoughtfully considering what they said.
Exactly. In English-speaking cultures, however, silence is frequently perceived as a breakdown in the social contract.
Wow.
Yeah, it signals disinterest, aloofness, or even outright hostility.
So we basically have to constantly fill the void.
We have to pass the conversational ball.
Pass the ball. I like that.
Yeah. Following up an answer with, "How about you?" or "What about you?" does very little to transfer actual data.
Because you don't really need to know how they are.
Right. It functions entirely as social glue. It proves you are invested in the interaction. It keeps the temperature of the conversation warm.
Okay, so if silence signals a breakdown, we are essentially forced to keep the momentum going.
Pretty much.
But what happens when we aren't just making small talk? What happens when we are out in the world running errands and we actually need to get something done?
That is a whole different ballgame.
Because navigating a shop, a train station, or a restaurant requires a totally different use of language. It becomes transactional.
And transactional language carries its own unique psychological weight, because there's an immediate outcome on the line.
You want something.
Yes, you have a goal, buying a ticket, ordering a meal, finding an address, and your language is the tool you use to achieve it.
So let's look at what the source calls one of the most important sentences any English learner can know. It is the ultimate high-stakes errand, being completely turned around in a new city.
Getting lost.
Right. The phrase is, "I think I am lost. Can you help me?" And it is framed in such a specific way. It is not just a demand for directions.
No, it leads to vulnerability. Saying, "I think I am lost," disarms the stranger before you even make the request. You are signaling that you are in a diminished state, and you are appealing to their altruism.
Which makes them want to help.
Exactly. If you just walk up to someone on the street and say, "Where is the station?"
Mm.
it feels invasive.
Oh, totally.
It demands labor from them without acknowledging the imposition.
And that invasive feeling happens in shops, too.
All the time.
Like if you walk into a bakery and just say, "Give me bread," or you sit at a restaurant and say, "Bill," it is so jarring.
Extremely jarring.
The words are technically correct. You want the bill. But the delivery is incredibly abrasive.
And the reason is that direct imperatives are structurally reserved for commands.
Right, like training a dog.
Yeah. Using them in a transactional setting strips the humanity from the interaction. You are essentially treating the service worker like a vending machine.
That is a great way to put it.
Natural, socially acceptable English leans heavily on modal verbs to soften the demand. So instead of bill, you say, could I get the bill, please? Or can I have some bread?
I always picture those polite framing words, the could I and the please, as the shock absorbers on a car.
Ooh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, think about it. The core transaction is the wheel hitting the physical road. You want bread, they have bread. That is the hard reality of the exchange.
Right.
But if you don't have any shock absorbers, every single bump in that road goes straight into the chassis. Everyone gets their teeth rattled. It is a miserable ride.
It really is.
The could I please absorbs the friction of the demand, allowing the transaction to happen without anyone feeling jostled.
That analogy holds up perfectly, especially when you add tone into the mix, which the source material talks about specifically.
The tone tips, yes.
The shock absorbers only work if they are installed correctly.
Right.
If you ask, can I pay by card, but your pitch drops at the end of the sentence, it flattens the request into a statement.
It sounds demanding even with the polite words.
Exactly. The rising intonation on the word card is a physical cue to the listener that you are asking, not telling.
You know, I do struggle with this whole concept in hyper-efficient environments, though.
Like where?
Let's say I'm in a crowded coffee shop. The line is out the door. The baristas are totally stressed out. The espresso machines are screaming.
A typical Tuesday morning.
Exactly. Adding all these polite could I pleases and checking my rising intonation feels like I'm just wasting everyone's precious time.
You just want to get to the point.
My instinct is to just step up to the register and say, oat milk, to be as efficient as humanly possible and get out of their way. Is there ever a scenario where being perfectly efficient and direct is actually a bad thing?
Well, it seems like a logical optimization, right? But linguistic efficiency rarely maps perfectly onto social efficiency.
Okay, unpack that for me.
By stripping the sentence down to just oat milk, you are prioritizing robotic speed over social cohesion. And in English, prioritizing warmth and connection almost always supersedes sheer efficiency.
Really? Even when the line is out the door?
Even then, a phrase like, excuse me, do you have oat milk, takes maybe 1 second longer to physically say, but it maintains the social harmony.
Oh, I see.
The barista prefers the slightly longer sentence because it acknowledges them as a human being in a stressful environment, rather than a robot receiving a text command.
So it is the difference between simply completing a transaction and managing a relationship.
Exactly.
Right.
And managing that relationship requires a tolerance for the friction we just talked about.
Which means we have to talk about what happens when the shock absorbers fail.
Because they will fail.
Because when you are out there in the real world, relying on muscle memory and trying to manage your tone, you are inevitably going to stumble. You're going to make mistakes. The source material directly addresses this.
And the stakes of those mistakes vary wildly. I mean, some are just minor grammatical blips, but others drastically alter the social reality of the moment.
Like the classic mix-up from the source between I am bored and I am boring.
Ooh, that is a big one.
To a learner, the difference is literally just a suffix. But socially, the difference is catastrophic.
Catastrophic is the exact right word. Because I am bored describes an internal state. You are understimulated by your environment.
You need something to do.
Right. But I am boring projects a trait onto yourself. You are declaring that you lack personality and are tedious to be around.
It's the worst party strategy ever. Walking up to a group of strangers at a networking event and confidently stating, hello, I am boring, is practically a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No one is going to stick around to test that hypothesis.
Exactly.
And this is where the analytical brain really traps us. If you are constructing a sentence by consciously translating rules in real time, bored and boring are easily swapped because the root word is identical.
Your brain just grabs the closest one.
Yeah. But if you have shadowed the phrase I am bored in context, linking it to the physical feeling of tediousness, your motor cortex remembers this specific vocal pattern.
So you don't even have to think about it.
You don't have to pause and recall the rule regarding adjectives ending in id versus ing. Your mouth just knows what to do.
It is the exact same mechanism with dropping prepositions, isn't it? Like saying, can you explain me instead of, can you explain it to me?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
From a pure data standpoint, can you explain me, conveys the desire for an explanation. The listener can probably deduce what you mean.
I get the gist.
But it feels deeply jarring to a native speaker. Shadowing fixes structural gaps like missing prepositions through rhythm.
Through the music of the sentence.
Right. When you repeat, can you explain it to me 50 times, to me, becomes an integral beat in the musical phrase. If you try to say, explain me, your mouth will physically feel that a beat was skipped.
Like missing a step on a staircase.
That is exactly what it feels like. You correct the grammar not because you remember the rule governing indirect objects, but because the rhythm feels physically incomplete.
But, knowing that we are going to occasionally miss that step on the staircase creates an intense fear of speaking for a lot of people.
Oh, the fear of embarrassment is huge.
If I know my rhythm isn't perfect, and I know I might drop a preposition or mess up a verb tense, the overwhelming temptation is to just retreat.
To stay quiet.
Yeah. I'll play devil's advocate here. If a colleague asks why I'm late to a meeting, giving a cold one-word answer like traffic guarantees, I won't make a grammatical error.
Technically true.
Attempting a warmer, longer explanation like, sorry I am late, the traffic was terrible today, opens me up to a dozen potential mistakes. Shouldn't I just give the one-word answer to avoid embarrassment?
That retreat into silence, or extreme brevity, is the most damaging instinct a language learner faces. Let's really look at the psychology of that interaction, based on the source's philosophy.
Okay.
The one-word answer, traffic, is grammatically flawless, but functionally, it is a conversational dead end.
Because it just stops the interaction.
Right. It signals to your colleague that their time isn't worth a full explanation. It comes across as defensive and cold.
It is basically a microaggression disguised as efficiency.
It acts exactly like one. Now, compare that to attempting the full sentence and fumbling it. Suppose you say, sorry I am late. The traffics were terribly today.
Grammatically, it's a
A
mess.
total mess. But humanly, it is entirely successful.
Really?
Yes. The effort you put into constructing a full sentence demonstrates respect for the other person. You are actively trying to repair the social breach of being late by offering a warm, multi-word apology.
Because you are showing you care.
Exactly. The ultimate goal of conversation is human connection, not passing a stealth grammar test. Making mistakes is completely normal. Not trying is the only real problem.
That completely reframes the definition of a mistake. We are so conditioned by years of schooling to view a grammatical error as a failure, a red mark on the test.
But the real world doesn't grade you like that.
No, it doesn't. In the real world, the only actual failure is the refusal to connect. A broken, warm sentence always wins out over a perfect, cold silence.
Because people remember how you made them feel, not whether your pluralization was flawless. The stumbles are just the byproduct of being in the arena.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
Let's do a quick recap. We started by dismantling the idea that language is just cognitive rule checking, revealing it as a deeply physical exercise in muscle memory through the shadowing method.
Moving those muscles.
Right. We looked at how mastering the invisible rhythms and social nuances like the shock absorbers of polite requests and the dread of awkward silence totally dictates how the world responds to you.
Casual versus formal, all of that.
Exactly. And we fundamentally redefined what it means to succeed in a conversation, prioritizing warmth, connection, and vulnerability over sterile, robotic perfection. Imperfect connection always beats perfect silence.
Integrating all of this leaves me returning to the profound physical nature of the shadowing method itself.
What do you mean?
Well, if learning to speak naturally is truly a matter of training your jaw and tongue to move in specific, rhythmic ways, it forces us to question the nature of our own identity when speaking a second language.
Oh, wow. How so?
Think about it. How much of what we consider our personality in a foreign language is actually just entrenched physical habit?
Oh, that is interesting.
Right. If you deliberately change the prosody of your voice, if you force your mouth to shadow sentences with a fast, relaxed confidence, and physically train your vocal cord to rise brightly at the end of a question, does your internal state eventually follow suit?
Like fake it till you make it, but physically.
Exactly. Do you trick your brain into genuinely feeling confident simply by wearing the physical mask of a confident speaker? If you change the rhythm of your voice, do you change how you feel?
The idea that you can reverse engineer confidence just by changing the physical rhythm of your vocal cords is incredibly powerful. You aren't just learning how to sound like a native speaker, you are physically building the architecture to feel like one.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. So, to you listening, it is time to stop reading the sheet music and start feeling the rhythm. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now go out there and make some noisy, awkward, beautifully imperfect connections today.